In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use highlights and notes inside of the Opposing Viewpoints database. Starting inside of the database, I'm going to just pick any issue. So I'll click on Browse Issues. I'll pick anything here. Let's do drug abuse. And I'm just going to open the first article I see just to show you how to use highlights and notes. Now you'll notice highlights and notes, it's listed up here in the top right corner. This is a really cool tool that this database offers. Right now it tells you 0 because I have 0 highlights and notes. To create a highlight and note within my article, I'm going to read it, of course, to see what it is I need or will find useful for my research or for my paper that I'm writing. And once I have found a piece of information that I find useful and want to save or potentially highlight for my essay, then I'm going to grab my mouse and click and drag over the text that I want to highlight. When I release my mouse, it's going to give me this little pop-up box with color options. And what I can do is select a color, and then I'm going to type my note. So for example, let's say I want to use this to support my theory or my claim in my essay. Then I can write a note to myself. This supports my claim. And then I want to make sure to click on Save to save that highlight and that note. You can also create a highlight without a note. So let's say you just want to keep this in mind for next time, or you have no additional information you want to provide about this text, but you just want to highlight it. You could just select a color and highlight and click Save without the note. But if you do want to remind yourself about why you selected this text, what it's useful for, then it's always good to add yourself a little note. Use this as a counterpoint, for example. Save. Now let's say you change your mind about this highlight or note. You don't need it anymore. You can click on it again. You can change its color, or you can delete it here by clicking on the trash can. It's gonna ask you if that's something you really want to do. You say yes and delete. Okay. I'm gonna add one more highlight just as an example. I'll do orange this time and save. Okay, now what you'll notice up in the top right corner is that my highlights and notes now says 3 because I have 3 highlights and notes. And so to access these highlights and notes, I can click on this link and it will show them to me here. Now if I want them on their own page, I just click on View All Highlights and Notes and it will take me here. Now it gives me not only what I've highlighted, but also the points that I've made or the notes that I've made for those particular highlights. And really important to note is up here it tells you make sure you download or send your highlights and notes to yourself before exiting the product, so before exiting the database, because the contents here will be lost after you close your browser. So once you close the browser or close this tab, you're out of the database, you've lost your highlights and notes. So you have to make sure you send them to yourself somehow. And you'll notice here that the format says MLA9, or you can choose between APA 7. If you scroll down, these are some highlights and notes that I did previously. And then here's the bibliography. These are the articles from which I pulled those highlights and notes. So these citations are what's in MLA9. So to obtain these highlights and notes, I can click on Send To, save to my Google Drive or OneDrive, or email them to myself, very much like the articles, or I can download, or I can print. Those are my options for saving the highlights and notes. And that's everything in terms of highlights and notes in Gale Opposing Viewpoints.